Just going to talk to you about, do you really actually need a 1.8, a 1.4, 1.2 lenses? That's what we're going to talk about today. 50mm 1.8 has been in the bag and I've always owned one. That's all I can say. How much use does it get? Well, for me as a wedding photographer, during really late evenings when, you know, not only does a couple had enough of the photographer, most of the guests are just like, please photographer, will you go home? And we want to go home as well, to be honest with you. But the couple, you know, want to milk the day and they want to get that extra hour that was in the package. So they want you to stay. This is where the 1.8 and your 1.4s and 1.2s may come in handy. But as a photographer, you know, generally landscape, obviously, do you need a 1.8 lens? No, not really. So let's just look at that and I'll talk to you about why I believe that f4 is enough. We've got a white balance card in this shot because I've just done the white balance. Right, so my opinion is that you can generally do everything you want to do with a 5.6 lens. And if you're just about to look at the L series lenses and you've been looking at my videos and thinking you'd like to go this direction, f4 lenses are great when you can afford them and you want to go that far. But if you can get to 5.6, most of my courses I teach at 5.6, then you're absolutely fine. Just going to dive straight into depth of field because I know that you're going to want to comment on this one. Again, you know, I'm not going to do any Facebook groups, anything like that. This channel is literally the comments below are the place for you to talk to each other. So if you comment below, I'm sure someone will, you know, you can chat below and I'll come in every now and then and tell you what I think. But right, so why do I not get involved with large aperture lenses? Here we go, can't even find this. Here we go. So I soon found, and to be honest with you, I've spent many years with large aperture lenses, taking pictures of all sorts of things with really, really blurry backgrounds. And I'm as bad as everybody else. But as soon as you get into the depth of field charts and you get yourself an app, what you start to look at is the fact that focal length makes a massive difference to depth of field and the softness of your background. So what I've got into is using focal length rather than aperture. So my whole wedding, I'd be really happy at 135 at 5.6 through to 200mm. I've discussed this in one of my other videos a little bit, so I'll link to some of the videos at the end. It should pop up with some cards. If not, they'll be in the description along with lots of other links. So take a look in the description. So 200mm, 135, maybe 100mm. Let's look at that area. So I'm not going to get the depth of field calculator out now, but the bottom line is I've literally studied this and looked at all of my photos with the full frame 5D Mark I using those focal lengths at 5.6 on getting very nice out of focus backgrounds. So then we jump to the other end, and the argument will be, and as I say, please discuss this, is we actually like the perspective of the 50mm lens. So therefore we want to open it up to, let's buy the 50mm 1.2. And I get that, I understand that, because you like the field of view and you like the background out of focus. So I can understand why you like that. And I'm not saying buy it, but do you actually need it? So the average, I call it, say, amateur, I mean enthusiast really, can do most of their photography with a couple of zoom lenses at 5.6. Use the telephoto side of this lens, or maybe, I'll give you an idea, if you were using a 200D, 250D with that size sensor, they do a nice, forget it now, 50 to 250, 55 to 250 rings a bell, IS lens. I recommend that one quite a lot. So what I teach people is to think about focal length first, which in turn gets you further away from your person or your subject, which is a good thing. And then the person feels a lot more relaxed. But also you can use 5.6, and the telephoto part of the lens is actually going to create the background blur that you may desire. So a big thing that people then do is they forget the other end of it, which is the 24-105. Let's have a look at that. So this end of things is where everything seems to go wrong. I find that people are trying to do portraits at 35mm to 50mm, which for environmental portraits I completely appreciate. That's absolutely fine. But if you're with a really experienced model, you can be in this area. But the average person, including many models, would prefer you to be at this end. But imagine we're at this end and we're at 5.6. Well, now we've got very massive depth of field. 24, so at 35, we've got massive depth of field. So you're not really seeing that blurry background. But what if we got the background further away from the subject and then we got closer to the subject? Well, you'll find you get a blurry background then. So paying attention to your backgrounds at this end at 5.6 will allow you to make blurry backgrounds. So what I'm trying to teach people, and the reason people like this on the courses, is because people are getting obsessed with blurry backgrounds. I understand that completely. I'm not obsessed with them now. I'm obsessed with content and story of the image, but it's taken years. I was completely obsessed with blurry backgrounds, believe me, when I was 18 or 19. And I'm not saying don't go down that route, but just appreciate you can either do it with focal length combined with a smaller aperture, or you can go with something more like a 50mm and buy a large aperture. Here we go, Samsung has had enough now. I think it's when it gets hotter, this camera. So yes, what I'm saying to you is don't get buy-in lots of lenses for a start. I believe that you should start, well, I'm not finished just yet, but starting and finishing, I'd quite happily do away with this one. If I had just a portrait business, I'd quite happily just have that one. So I hope that helps and starts to get you thinking. You need to be downloading depth of field calculators and working this all out. One of the ones, I'll just get it on my phone, that I'm looking at the moment, it's called Depth of Field Calc. I've been using this with a lot of people on courses, and because you can dial your camera, focal length, aperture, distance from subject, you'll start to get a feel for why you can use a longer focal length with an average aperture and probably get exactly the result you want anyway without spending a fortune on 50mm 1.2s or 85mm 1.4s. Not saying I don't want one of those, and I appreciate all your comments below. If someone sent me an 85mm 1.4, which lens would I then use? I think I'd probably end up with this one, to be honest with you, at 5.6 and about here. That is where, yesterday I was doing portraits. I keep testing my own system out, because you've got to remember that what I'm teaching you is from just doing it and learning. So I'm literally at weddings, and then I'm analysing where I am afterwards in Lightroom, and you'd be amazed how often I'm there with all my portraits, happy portraits, where people are literally not worried I'm there. If you're down here, then they're not so happy. So I hope that helps, and just, I hope it makes you realise you don't have to spend the earth on millions of lenses. There's reasons for every one of my lenses, but that's why I'm doing this for you. So comment below, description links are there. If you have trouble finding any of the links, you can go to richardbarleyphotography.com. I've got an equipment page, and just one single page on the equipment page is going to be where I'm going to put all the links to everything. So hope that helps.